Hello everyone, it's Cheryl Millett here. Yeah, it's not the live at 5, but or on Mondays anyway. The idea was to come and talk about cannabis juice. And I am just going to refer to a particular video here. Not necessarily a video, but actually a thing. So just let me get things sorted out here. Here we go. Okay, so cannabis juice. Now, I just want to kind of say why I was tuned into cannabis juice is that I watched a program, Truth About Cancer, and I think this was their third one. Anyway, it had to do with Asia. And most cases, when it comes to herbals, when it comes to those kind of things, there's so much going on around the world and has gone on around the world that for the most part, we don't get to hear about it. We've not really had what you call herbal doctors kind of infused in the Western world culture on an ongoing, whereas they have. So they also have, unfortunately or fortunately, I guess, combined both the medical and that into the practice. So it's really interesting to hear them speak about. They thought the medical was the end all and the be all, and they soon discovered, or some did anyway, that it isn't. And you have to go through the same medical training to be called a medical doctor over there as you would have to here, I guess whatever you want to call curriculum, right, or stuff like that. Hi, Ivan. And so we have things, maybe not even just cannabis, possibly a whole slew of other things that are here. I mean, even I want to kind of point out dandelion greens. Dandelion greens are amazing for the body, amazing for the liver. And I want to speak on dandelion greens just briefly. When I went over to Ireland and Scotland, everywhere that I went, I looked for dandelion greens. I looked for it. And hi, John. And so dandelion greens are everywhere. At least Ireland, Scotland, and maybe this all has to do with this, latitude, longitude, or stuff like that. Maybe dandelion doesn't grow actually everywhere. But in our part of the world, it surely grows. In the climate is amazing for that. And so when I was over in Ireland and Scotland, I actually made a habit of looking for it everywhere to see if it was there. And when I found the dandelion greens, I ate one. I ate them. So I was, chewing on them. Now, cannabis greens, could you actually chew on that the same way versus juicing as you could dandelion leaves and as I did with the wheatgrass? Absolutely. These things here, in my book, I talk about it, the jaw, because it's about the digestive system, and talking about just how strong our jaw is, very strong. So eating dandelion greens doesn't mean you have to cook them, put them in a salad. The pokert, which you see, if you saw the short video that I did on cannabis and juicing the leaves, is very inexpensive. I don't know where you would find it. I purchased it a long time ago. And chewing greens also is an issue for the dental, dental color and things like that. No different than tea, no different than tea. But people had, hi Ivan, people had questions about the cannabis juicing. And again, I'm going to say that it may have its own properties, but maybe certain things that are a little bit different than other greens. But I'm going to say in most part, you're going to see vitamins, you're going to see minerals, you're going to see maybe one be more high in iron, you're going to see, big word, antioxidants. But dandelion greens are everywhere. Cannabis, the whole industry of growing hemp, and you couldn't do it in the US, and it had been around apparently for a very long time. And again, watching the Truth About Cancer, I heard very distinctly from a couple of doctors there that they did include cannabis juicing, which just set off a bunch of bells and whistles. But cannabis doesn't grow wild. over here that I know of. I mean, in most cases, they wanted to squash it, but I don't think it was necessarily because of the drug. I think it was mostly because it produced a lot of things, clothing, paper. It had a lot of multi-use purpose, not necessarily just for the drug part of it. Anyway, that's my belief on there. So when we think of cannabis juicing, I have to tell you, I must have put in 20, 25, 30 leaves just to get, not even a teaspoon. So in this article, which I posted on the Facebook, under the video, you'd see it there, and it's probably one of many, I'm sure, but it really does kind of give a very brief outline, but it talks about including it in vegetable and fruit juices. Really don't have to. If you're going to have it, just juice it immediately, and just take like a shot. And so if it's just a teaspoon, if it's just a tablespoon, but they did say in here, and it just concurs what I was doing, because I have a large plant from somebody, and it's the only reason why I got it. And so you do have to have a lot. So on a regular basis, you would have to need a lot of plants in order to have, whether it's a quarter of an ounce of this juice. It would be much easier to compare probably cannabis juicing with wheatgrass juicing and see what is different, or even dandelion or some of these other wild plants that are just in abundance here that would help with our bodily systems. You'll probably see these things, anti-inflammatory, if you read the article in Cannabis, you're going to see a lot of similar things that you would see if you actually did research for wheatgrass and things like that. I'm just going to, now of course we have, when it comes to cannabis, as they say here, a dietary raw cannabis specialist. So plants are plants, and no question about it. Raw, they have such, lots of energy there. Lots of energy, and they talked about juicing the flowers. So I'm not quite sure. Flowers, there's these buds, the hash, there's all this kind of stuff that comes into play. I did not want to do the flowers yet. I just wanted to stick with the leaves. So where does it say? It does say something here about the benefits. And really, again, it's nothing you're going to see any different with other things as well. So that's the biggest thing, is even though it's cannabis leaves and juicing, there's going to be other greens that are going to be comparable. Here it says boost your immune system, improves your ability to absorb nutrients due to the removal of insoluble fiber, improves digestion as a result of better access to digestive enzymes in plant foods. So enzymes in leaves, you're gonna have it in all of them, okay? And that's really about it. It does talk about if you suffer from gastrointestinal issues, it's important more to understand that people are going to start doing this cannabis juicing. They may very well just try to add it to a bunch of fruit juice and a bunch of vegetable juice. And for a long, long time, it's very clear that it's actually this book, How Cooking Made Us Human. And they talked about an experiment, this doctor from way back, whereas if you are processing foods, and that's including juicing, so any juicing that you would do is actually a process of the foods. Would there be some enzymes? Would there be some live and phytonutrients and all of that? Absolutely. But your body will take that in, especially the fruit juice, as in like sugar, dumping right into the bloodstream, right? It's not taking its time to break it out of the cells of the plant or any of that. So that holds true for everything. Leaves included here, although you probably won't have enough plants to do that much, so it's not a big deal. But fruit has a lot of a lot of water in it, right? A lot of juice, as does vegetables. But anyway, I wanted to get down to something about plant versus mammal, just very quickly. When we think about consuming all of this plant, more plants, and even salads, our system would take a lot more energy to actually break it down to assimilate it, be it our systems could be cleaner by kind of doing those diets. Great for cleansing, great for maybe rebuilding, cleaning up the digestive system, but we also have to think about how our body can convert it. And if we've got a variety of diet and we're having juicing over here and plants and we're having cooked sausages over here and such, we are perhaps having still a digestive system that is just not exactly clean, clear, that kind of thing. So we don't absorb these things effectively, but we also have to convert them in the body. So mammalian, be it breast milk, is ideal for the baby, but not plants. Like, it wouldn't give juice, wheatgrass juice or carrot juice to a baby. It just ain't going to work. Not going to convert. The body doesn't assimilate it. It's not doing what it needs to do. Well, people who have a dysfunctioning digestive system are too in a predicament where they're not absorbing and converting. You know, you need enzymes. You need all these things that kind of break things apart and stuff. And if we're nutrient deficient, then we're not getting the full benefit of everything, right? We're not getting the full benefit. And that includes, never mind absorption, but also converting within the system that way. And that's really the big reason why I do the mammalian seal oil over any fish or any plant. I mean, I don't mind consuming plants, and I know there's fatty acids in there, but I know without a shadow of a doubt that the mammalian gets absorbed effectively. And in fact, it's so in tune with us that we can absorb it sublingually under our tongue, versus all the other stuff has to come down and get picked or choosed or whatever, assimilated as the system sees fit that way. Whereas mammalian can actually be absorbed effectively through other routes like the sublingual with the salivary glands and then directly into the bloodstream and into the body, which is why I think it's an issue sometimes when we're injecting non-mammalian things or things that are getting exposed to the blood and to our whole system, right, without it first going through the digestive system, where the digestive system can pick and choose whether it needs it absorbed. And I am talking vaccines as one example, but we do expose ourselves much more to whatever it is that we're injecting into our body that doesn't first go through our digestive system, because if something tastes really bad, you're just going to spit it out. Great. Number one, security guard, whatever, police, there. And then if it comes into the stomach and then the stomach doesn't like it because there's something there about it, whether it's an increased amount of bacteria or stuff, then you'll vomit. And that's, okay, number two, of security there, and so forth. Even if things can get into our intestines, we have the opposite effect, up this way, but the opposite, diarrhea. And in all cases, I will tell you, besides keeping hydrated, that the vomiting or the diarrhea are very good things. You want whatever is in the system, the digestive system. You don't want to take a pill and stop that. As much as it's inconvenient if you're actually wanting to travel or wanting to do things, but seriously, you want it to get it out. How many people actually come back from wherever countries they are, and they had, stomach flu and things like that, and it affects the bowels too, and then they want to stop it, right? And they go on that route until the body just gives up. Okay, we're not going to do it, or however it works with the medications. And that's not necessarily a good thing, because what we're doing is we're keeping things in our body, right? We're keeping things in our body. So not to kind of go down that route too much, but the idea is cannabis juice does have it's greens, so it does have the nutrients, phyto minerals, vitamins, those kind of things, but you do have to do it very quickly, as in pick the leaves and actually juice it. And that's not necessarily what we actually have in the grocery stores when we're picking and buying things, lettuce and greens and stuff like that. They're not necessarily fresh. So I think when you're doing wheatgrass and you're doing cannabis juicing and you're doing it for the reasons you're doing it, you do have it fresh. It's not like the chaga tea where I brew it for several hours and it's fine for a week or two, something like that, if I keep it in the fridge. With the phytonutrients in the green, and the enzymes and things like that, that's different. You'd want to have it, pick it, juice it, and then consume it right away, because otherwise you'll be missing out on some of the nutrients there. And this is important. This is important. So that's all I really wanted to come on today and talk about. Hi, Zena. And so there's all these people, all these people are, interested in cannabis. And this will be my last thing on the cannabis, just to kind of wrap it up in a kind of a package. And this is, just as something for us to understand, and it does bring in different elements of my understanding in foods and biochemistry and actually how the body responds. First, I'll start you off with just a little story. I ended up in a place near University of Toronto campus through somebody I'd met at a concert, classical music. And I got invited, and it was more about raising funds. But what I learned was that these pharmaceutical guys, chemists we call them, or they were scientists, pharmaceutical scientists, let's call them that, and chemists. And they had a real concern with the cannabis coming out, especially for children. And this is primarily because, so listen to this, this is primarily because what they said is that by doing now let's just say the drug portion of the cannabis, right? I just want to make sure I say it correctly. But by doing that the thing that gives us the high, all right, that all of that kind of component, so whatever form it comes in, it actually acts like lithium. And if you know what lithium is, lithium was used to dull, to keep quiet. It was used in the sanitariums ages ago to, people that weren't well mentally, and they, you get, admitted to these places, and then they would give lithium. So their concern was, they actually saw it in a presentation where you saw what the brain looked like with lithium and certain markers, and they went through it in details, and then they actually showed the cannabis doing exactly the same thing. So to me, it really doesn't matter certain other specifics other than how the body's responding to it. And that's the drug-like part of cannabis, not the juicing of the leaves part, but the drug part, and that's what it's kind of doing. And dulling, absolutely, that would help with pain. Agreed? For sure. I mean, that's really what I've been hearing from practitioners, other people that have talked to people, and I too, about people who are taking that. And in some cases, they're like comatose for hours. Comatose. So their body is just, just zoning out. Of course, they're not feeling any pain, but they can't function. They just cannot even function. Never mind driving. They can't even get out of, off the couch or off the bed or whatever they're doing. So there definitely is a big thing out there to understand what it's doing, at least for me, for educate people, what it's actually doing at the end of the day. By acting like lithium, it's dulling the senses, dulling the brain. Yes, pain's going to go away. Is it a good thing? Well, it can be very healing. And that's why I think they've tapped into this, that when you have pain, your body is in crazy, crazy sympathetic mode, right? It's pain. It's like, whoa, it's pain. So everything is just on the edge. Everything is just crazy. So if you're dulling the system somehow, and their healing can happen, right? So not do it long term. Don't do it long term. That would be my advice. Short term, and if you can figure it out, and I'm not even saying that's your first go-to. There's many other things I can give you that could be anti-inflammatory, anti-pain first, to try and all this kind of stuff. But I just kind of wanted to focus in on all of that. So that's the main thing. But I'm going to just bring it in very quickly to another aspect we can think about, which is just what happens in smoking in general. Just anything that's smoked, especially leaves or plants. Well, if there's a fire, we're not to breathe it in, and heaven forbid there's chemicals in the things that are blowing up, that are on fire, because that will just be a highly toxic overload for the system, the lungs, and people have had issues with that. Never mind just breathing in, but breathing the chemicals in a smoke. So here's the thing. Smoking cigarettes, vaping, smoking pot, anything that's smoking is going to be carcinogenic for our lungs. It's no different than you breathing in smoke in a fire. You know, fire produces smoke, and it could be just perfectly clean wood even. And so that's that. I mean, just smoking it makes it a highly processed food, right? A highly processed substance as soon as you burn it. So the big degree here is it's, thanks Ivan for the link there. And the big degree of things, if we're thinking about ingesting or respiratory, you know, lungs breathing in or, you know, taking in as food, is that it's the processing that's happening from these raw foods, right, to what you do it as it comes in the bud. That's really the crux of it. So it doesn't even matter if all of a sudden they come out with, you can smoke dandelion leaves. It's insane. It will not be the same as taking and juicing the dandelion leaf. It will never be. There might be something that'll come about from it, perhaps. I mean, residues that kind of get into the body, even for consuming, you know, digesting, eating and stuff. But yeah, so my thing would be, listen, if you can stay off coffee and you can stay off anything that smokes and you're just, you know, wanting to, you know, if you're inhaling it by any means, and, you know, the highly processed foods like the vegetable oils and the refined sugars. You want to chew on a sugar cane. There you go. That's a lovely carb full of minerals, not refined, not processed, but sugar cane, which has been as a healing thing in juice in the Caribbean, but other places as well, because it's, I think it originally comes not from India, but Papua New Guinea or something like that. Down in that region is where the sugar cane actually came from. So I hope this is making sense for everybody as to how I've been able to take apart the biochemistry of things. You know, there's the processing of things, or how our body uses it. And this is really key. This is really key to make it easier on our body and to not interfere with, you know, less toxicity, but support it, boost it, give it what it needs to do all the functions that it will do. So it's really about adding the things that you need and taking the things that you don't need or that doesn't serve the body. But again, there is times where things might be necessary, you know, like the cannabis. I mean, if it's very necessary, if a person's in a lot of pain, is it going to be any better than other things? Possibly. I'm not sure where lithium and element, I'm not sure how they kind of put that together and as if it's highly processed. So there might be a benefit with that. But then again, there are things that I've seen take away pain that doesn't require any of that, you know, that would act as a not so good for the body. Ideally, but so I hope this is helpful. I wouldn't use cannabis and smoking all this as your first go-to, and cannabis juice is not drug-like. So, but again, we have so many dandelion leaves here. I'm just ready to go to the meadow this week, see how many dandelions I get. I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to juice the dandelion leaves through my Curt and see how it comes out. We definitely have abundance of those. I don't even know if they could eliminate it, dandelion, ever. You know, just how powerful, and that really speaks to how powerful and you know, nutritive base. And if I bring my garden tool with me, I may get some of the root as well and use a little bit of that. And I don't know, there might be some flowers out there too as well, but I'll experiment. I love doing that kind of stuff. So I'm just going to end it there for now. There was a number of things that kind of came up in this video. I don't plan these things, so whatever kind of popped into my head there is what I put in there. I'm not even about to summarize it here. The idea would be just to watch it, but we really do need to focus on the quality. I think I mentioned that at Live at 5. More than anything, but really people don't quite understand how things work, and I've been fortunate to meet various people along the way and be present and absolutely present. I prefer that any day than just reading it in a book. But sometimes reading a book actually just gets me to ask more questions, and then I'm able to find out the answers to certain things. But there you go, everyone. Hi, Shirley. Hi, Chris. Adele. Any questions about that? I'm far not the expert on it by any means, but I'm able to discern certain things when I'm reading articles. But again, you can read the same thing, strength immune system, anti-inflammatory, helpful for this. You're going to read the same thing over and over again about a number of things. It's not going to be as rocket science, as they say, when it comes to plants and all plants and things like that. But there are differences, and that's for a whole other conversation. That's like rocks and crystals. Why do they have all these names of crystals, what they're healing for? And there is some elements of that too in the actual plant itself, whether we think about it being to oil, we think about it to be in water or anything like that. There is a reason for where there's different scents, and it again, it's for a much longer conversation here, and we'd have to dive into elements and molecules and all that kind of stuff. So I'm going to avoid getting into that topic as much as I think it's an important topic. So needless to say, dandelion's good for liver. You've heard that. There you go. Cannabis, I don't know, supports immune system, not a bad thing. But there's a lot of things that support immune system and so forth. So any questions, feel free to ask questions, especially if I've been talking about it here, brought it up. And I love questions because sometimes I like to get the answers to them too. And we come up with different questions. So take care, everyone. Good to see everyone. Enjoy the weekend. Enjoy the nice weather if you're here on this side of the equator, and here I think for the most part people are. But take care, and eat well, think quality. I think that's the main thing. Any questions, great, add. And the other thing I'll just mention briefly is I do the 15-minute complimentary consultation. Now, consultation, how much can you achieve in 15 minutes? But the idea is, 15 minutes, 18 minutes, whatever it is to be there to guide people and to see if really I can help. Yes, that's one thing. And there's certain questions, but it definitely is a good guide. I've been doing them more lately because I've been mentioning it rather than just having it on my website. It doesn't really do any good there, but just kind of bringing it up because it's really and it's just do it by phone, very simple. So you can always do that as well. I drink traditional medicinal herbal teas, organic roast dandelion root tea, and those kind of things. Herbal teas are interesting. They do have their properties, and in some ways you can make what they call sun tea. So Ivan, if you have your herbal tea, and quite often what we do, and we're not supposed to, I'm going to go on a little tangent here, but we're not actually supposed to boil our tea bags, right? So you don't put it in the boiling water. We boil the water, and then we put that scalding water on the herbs, the leaves, right? In a lot of cases, they're dried, and we put them on there to take out, to reconstitute it, so to speak, and to pull out the properties, and to let it sit longer than a few minutes, which people do, is going to be better. And sometimes those instructions there. But take note, because dried tea leaves are the easiest to sell, they're the easiest to store, the better thing would be to actually have those plants, whether it's chamomile, and it could be the flowers, or it could be, again, the dandelion leaves. If you took it the fresh and then kind of put the hot water on it, you're going to get a different effect and pretty colors. But the other thing to do as well, to take it even one step further, is actually, if some of you have heard about sun tea, you actually take water and just get a mason jar, and with the sun, on the water, heating it up only to that temperature. Over time, because it would be several hours or 3-4 hours depending, and it will make you your tea. So most people don't know that, and because I come from food processing, now I've been able to kind of see how things are working with teas, is that really sun tea is probably the minimal processing you could have with these teas. So it's like mint. And you take mint leaves and you do the same thing, add the hot water to it versus it being dried and packaging. Again, these herbal teas that we're used to drinking, or tea leaves, are dried. They're in some cases burnt, and they're heated, right? So that's what happens when you heat things. It turns brown, and so they're just not your green tea leaves anymore. That's what's happening. So you're also getting that part of the tea as well, and you're getting the other properties, and that makes sense for storage. That makes sense for this, shipping. That makes sense. You'll store much longer. It'll last much longer, but it probably doesn't last as long as you think. But the idea is you can take the same leaves of the same plants that you're maybe growing or can buy, and they'll be green and fresh, and you can add the hot water to it and give you the same thing. But sun tea would be ideal. Just putting water in a large glass jar and letting it sit out in the sun, and you're going to get the same effect. So medicinal herbal teas, that was good comment there, Ivan. I hope I just kind of commented that were things just to kind of broaden the way we can think about doing that. Yeah, you've heard of sun tea. Yeah, a lot of people don't do it. Why don't they do it? Number one, impatient. and number two, because they don't actually have access to, they don't have the plants. But this is changing, where we're actually growing mint. We're growing things that we can actually harvest. So herbs are probably, what we call the culinary herbs, are probably more popular. But let's say mint would be the easiest one to grow. And by all... what you have to do with mint is you have to keep it contained. It grows crazy. Some of these plants that, of course, are making mint tea, I mean, they must have such the easiest time growing the mint tea. It just grows wild, grows mentally wild. And if you ever put it in your garden, I'd highly suggest you put it in an area away from things you don't want it to overgrow, but also to put it in pots that you've taken out the bottom of, or just a pot half buried into the earth. And I have that in my front yard, where I have chocolate mint, and it's half buried into, and I'll put a bunch of leaves on it in the winter, and it survives just fine. But then it doesn't, it doesn't go crazy. Sorry about that. It doesn't go crazy to actually take over your garden. So that's the important thing with that. But I probably could make tea with cannabis as well. I think I know I can. I've read it. Same thing. So it's great to see everyone. Thank you for the questions, the comments here. That always jogs my memory to talk about different things. So grateful for that. Have a great weekend, everyone. I'll look to see if there's any other questions after the fact. But the idea is asking questions is always a grand thing, always a good thing. Ask questions. And the worst thing that can happen is you don't get the answer for 5 years, which has happened to me. It's just the right timing anyway, as silly as that sounds. But longer stories here. Take care, everyone. Again, best of health. Have a great long weekend. And if you came on a little bit late, I just encourage you to watch the video over again, because there is so many things that I explained and talked about there. So take care. Again, thanks for coming on. It's good to see everybody here. And listen, if we can all just be that much healthier at the end of the day and actually make an impact on the children or even the elders, that would be great. So again, take care. Happy to come on every once in a while when these topics come up, because they're great topics to speak about and so forth. Bye, everyone. Take care.